Welcome back, everybody, to the ISA Insider News. My name is Max Tim.
And I am Shayna Weber. And our top headline this week of June 13th is all about sequels ruling in 2022.
The twos in 2022. I don't know. Thinking the twos.
Oh, yeah. Twos and 22s. I like it.
Just popped into my head. There's a very cool article on the Wrap, Why Sequels Rule in 2022. Thank you, Wrap, for a very cool headline. But I mean, it's really not a huge discovery necessarily. It's just interesting to look at it and break it down.
Yeah, it took a little bit of like, wow, started thinking about, upcoming are just like this mega list of sequels. And the reason that this sort of like came to is because currently Top Gun 2, Jurassic World Dominion, and Doctor Strange are all just the top of the box office, probably pushing to like $1 billion box office for June.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they're amazing. Saying it's
but
possible.
There are some great ones.
It's possible to hit $1 billion in first time since 2019. So we're technically using this as our good news, because it is good news to see that people are getting back to the theaters. Every time I drive by our local theater, place is jammed, and we're a tiny town America out here. And so people want to get back to the movies. And it's very positive. Our good news of the week this week is going to be more like fun news. I don't know if it's really necessarily good, but it's also not bad. But yeah, what are the upcoming sequels we have here? It's crazy.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So obviously currently right now there's Top Gun, Doctor Strange, and Jurassic World Dominion in theaters. Upcoming in July, there's Thor, Love and Thunder. I'm going to see that because I love me some Thor. Minions, The Rise of Gru, which is going to be fantastic. Mission Impossible 7 is coming up in September. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part 1 is on October also, along with Hocus Pocus 2. Halloween Ends. And then in December, the one that so many people have been waiting for besides me is Avatar, The Way of Water.
I laughed so hard when I saw Halloween Ends, because I immediately thought, it's not over. You can't kill this guy. I don't know if anybody saw the most recent sequel to Halloween. It was a joke. I couldn't believe it was a spoof on the Halloween movies. And they had to have been laughing their entire way through it. There's no way Halloween is actually ending. But you got to get their attention with some form of a new title. But yeah, I mean, these are all really exciting movies. You've got another Black Panther coming out, Aquaman, Puss in Boots, Lightyear is coming out. Well, it's out now. Mm-hmm. It'll be on Disney Plus in mid-July. And I think this goes back to what we were saying in a previous broadcast, that if you look at the top 64 movies that have ever had $100 million opening weekends, or at least Memorial Day weekends. No, I think it was opening weekends. They're all sequels or based on previous material. So it makes sense that when we're coming out of a pandemic, these are the movies that are splashing the theaters, because people, it's a little bit more comfortable for them to get back to it. But what are we hoping that this does?
What are we hoping that this does, Shayna? Let me think. Well, you're hoping that with this surge again, it maybe bring some confidence to the studios and people making all this money, and then maybe they'll have money to put into some non-sequel movies, some original sort of ideas, and maybe they can throw a bone or two to some newcomers, because there's room for everybody. I mean,
you see all the TV shows, a lot of the TV shows, yes, they're based on prior material, but a lot of them are original, or at least material that we haven't really heard of. It's not Marvel always. It's not always Pixar stuff. There's room for original content. That's what our new writer base is hoping. I don't mean new because like you've never done it before, but writers who have yet to be produced. It's virtually impossible for a brand new writer who has never had anything produced to write and release a sequel. That's just silly, especially when there are literally billions of dollars riding on these movies. So that's what we're hoping, that this is good news. People are getting back to the theaters. Eventually profits will come back in and they'll take some more chances on original material.
Yeah. And ultimately, like if you still don't want to go to the theater, they all eventually will come to streaming. So you can wait and just rent it at home. Yeah. I was going to rent Everything Everywhere All at Once last night on Amazon Prime, but then I fell asleep. So that's on my list. I'm going to watch it, and I'm going to watch it at home.
It's definitely on my it's definitely on my list too, but it's also like $21 or something, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like $20, but that's what I'd spend to go to the movie theater. So
That's true.
kind of feel like, and I'd have to get a babysitter and I'd have to do the whole thing. So it's cheaper
That's
in the
true.
long run.
That's true.
Get a date over at your house, and then there you go.
Date, like,
Come on,
really?
Max.
I'm gonna get a date.
Not with that shirt on.
I was being funny with my Wilson. Well
No,
done.
I know, I like it.
Thank
It's
you,
very
Shayna.
cute.
That's nice of you. Moving on to the next segment.
I'm feeling
Telling-
sassy today.
That's
All right.
fine. Yeah, telling your truth on the page, just like Shayna's telling the truth on camera.
Oh, look at that segue. He's getting so good. All right. So this first article we're going to talk about on the ISA Insider is from Script Magazine. And it's a great one. It's a interview with writer and co-EP of Ted Lasso. Her name is Jane Becker. And she is just sort of breaking down in this very detailed interview about the writer's room, what it looks like, how it's working. And if you love Ted Lasso and you're interested in that, it's a great article to check out.
It's such a great article for all of you writers out there who are watching this and you're actively trying to either produce a TV show, or if you have questions about what happens in a writer's room, this article kind of nails it. There's a spot here where the interviewer asks, how did the writer's room collectively approach finding the second season's North Star? And they're just she's asking questions like, how did you then focus your second season, focus? And Jane said, Jason had the 3 seasons from the beginning, Jason Sudeikis. He very much had it planned. I think that's reminder number 1 for all of you writers. And I would say as a group, we come up with these ideas. And one thing that we do is we have this big master list and we'll go home and pick our favorites. We'll all sort of come back with the same favorites, which is really cool, but it's all sort of indicative of like, oh, this room wants to tell this kind of story. So this is how they're breaking story. And not every room is the same. That's why it's difficult to answer questions like when they ask us, you, Shayna, me, anybody with the ISA, what happens in a writer's room or how does a writer's room work? It really depends on the showrunner. But most of them are all working collaboratively as a team to figure out what's the direction of the show, what's the next episode, because they didn't necessarily know that the funeral episode, I think it was episode 2 of season 2, was going to happen at all. Somebody just threw out, maybe her dad dies. And they're like, oh my God, let's run with that. So it's, even though they're going to have a long list and Jason had the whole season planned out, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's it.
Yeah, a plan is not maybe what it turns out to be, but it's a good jumping off point. And that's why the writer's room is still such an amazing, almost secretive kind of space, because they do so much brainstorming and throwing out ideas. And you have to be able to do that confidently and be okay with a no, or what else, or where else does it go, or go further with that idea. So I'd love to be in that room.
There was, oh my God, that'd be so much fun. But there was another question that you highlighted.
I thought this was really cool. So the interviewer, Sadie, asked, would you recommend doing sketch comedy and improv for any writer? And Jane says, yeah, definitely. Obviously, some of the funniest writers are people who've done sketch and improv comedy. And I would agree. I tried that one time. And I think that being quick in how you can react to things and come up with something is such a huge tool. So even if it scares the crap out of you, like it was scary to sort of get up there and have nothing going. I'm not an actress. I don't like to do that. I don't like to be the center of attention, but man, it's like, it'll really help you. It's pretty cool.
I kind of feel like if you intend to be staffed on a half-hour comedy, you kind of have to take improv classes, or you have to be a performer in some way, and you have to be quick. I mean, some of the top comedians like the Jason Sudeikis, the Seth Rogans, and Paul Rudd, he's like a master at this. I am so intimidated by them. Like if I was in a group at a bar or a party and they're all just kind of standing around with a drink in their hand, there's no way I'd be able to get in fast enough. And writing's kind of the same way, especially when you're in a writer's room, man. It's not like you're competing against everybody, but you got to be able to play along.
Yeah. And it's like this quick wit of coming up with something really fast, but saying it maybe in a different way and not being obvious. Yeah. So it's like catching people off guard with what you say or how you react to something that sort of turns the table and shifts things or pivots. Right. And I think to me, that's what makes it super funny. It's like, I love normal, like everyday life comedy, that's why I think Mitch Hedberg was just, I mean, hilarious, because he took the most normal, mundane things and just like did a little thing with it.
Right.
And they're funny, you know? And so I think the best ones are like that.
Yeah, no, I agree. Read the article. It's excellent. We've got another one to share with you. The title of the article is actually a little misleading. So I think it's smart that we're sharing this, because you may not have realized that this is actually what the article is about.
So this is on the actual front page of ISA articles. And the title is Take Risks and Do Not Try to Replicate Other Styles. This is an interview with Jay Glazer, who's a manager producer. He's at Roar now. But essentially, it's an article about the relationship between a manager and a writer. And so they break down a lot of the questions that we get a lot from writers who are either looking for a manager or wondering if they need a manager. Like Max said, the title is a little bit misleading in terms of like, it's not talking about having your own voice. It's actually talking about what a manager is looking for, which is a fresh voice and somebody who's not repeating other people's styles or, you know, doing what everyone else does. I think that on a roster, if you're thinking about a roster of somebody who has, you know, their checklist of kinds of writers that they have, you want to really carve out your own niche of who you are.
Yeah, because you're selling yourself just as much as you're selling your projects. I had this question asked of me today in a webinar that I hosted for ISA's Emerging Screenwriters Contest. This is a slightly different version, but it's basically the same question. At what stage of your career should a screenwriter seek representation? And the manager is saying they should seek representation when the writing is ready to be presented to producers and buyers. And I hate that answer, but he's totally right. But the reason it's frustrating is because how many writers actually know when it's ready? But you know, he said there's an inherent chicken or egg nature to it. How do you make progress without the opportunity to have your work presented if you need to demonstrate progress in order to obtain representation? So his answer is a tough one to hear for all of you writers out there who want representation. He says it's often hustling on your own, ideally selling a project before seeking representation, thus building heat for your career and attracting interest from managers and agents. That's a tough answer, but he's right.
He's right. And also the work isn't going to stop when you get a manager. It's only going to get harder. You
don't get a manager so that somebody else can do your work. You get a manager who's going to assist in the work you're already doing. And that's basically what he's saying here. And if you were to sell a project or get something set up or produce a movie that gets some acclaim, people are going to be reaching out to you.
Yep. Also, the other thing that I liked in this article was what most attracts you to a project or a writer. And obviously, mastery of the craft of screenwriting is in there, truly unique voices. But this is a kind of a good thing to put in your brain when you are reaching out or you are having a meeting. He says, to me, spectacular screenplays often pose questions and ideas that we are collectively asking ourselves in our broad public conversations. When I pick up a script that is not only effortless and highly engaging to read, but also provokes deep thinking and even challenges my perceptions, that's when I feel excited. So that's something to think about when you're putting together even if you're making a pitch deck or you're setting up meetings for your project, figure out what that central question is, what you're trying to say and how it relates to the world currently.
Totally. Even if you're writing big budget action movies, as a writer who has yet to establish your career, even if you want to say, I want to write the big Marvel movies, et cetera, you have to start with a place where you can show here's my artwork, and the artwork's coming from characterization and emotion. Not huge, big world science fiction ideas. I mean, I hate to be sounding like a jerk, but good luck selling that right off the bat. It just probably won't. Maybe later when you've established your career, but it's just not going to happen right away. And so that's basically what he's saying. Yeah, it's a great article. Check it out on ISA Insider. ISA Insider. Just some events to remember. Okay, we've got 2 events next week. I'm hosting a webinar on June 22nd. It's a Wednesday. I'm going to be talking about how to write a great final act, whether it's the final act of your pilot or the third act of your feature. And then we also have a really cool event on Friday, the 24th. Yes, it's the special time at 2 p.m. Pacific. Yeah. It's called Trekking Through TV, the Past and Future of Television Writing. And our own Scott Marcus is co-moderating with John Champion, who is the co-host and long-running Star Trek podcast host
called Mission Log. And they have some absolutely amazing guests. This is co-produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. It's not only about Star Trek, but for a show and a world that's been around for a very long time and continues to chug along, what a great place to start, a foundation to start from, talking about television through the years and how it's evolving still,
Right.
for them, for other franchises, for new franchises. So make sure you check that out. Go to our event page to register, and then you'll get the Zoom link for that.
Yeah, join us for the events. Meanwhile, personal news, it's about 100 degrees in my house. I don't know if you've noticed that I'm red and sweating.
Spitzing.
I don't have any air conditioning. It's something that I should probably consider. But what are you watching, Shayna?
So I kind of went down a rabbit hole this weekend into like vampire-ish content. So I watched a pilot on HBO Max called Irma Vep.
Yeah.
And it's Alicia Vikander.
Love her.
And yes, I do too. And I was interested because obviously Irma Vep, if you switch it around, it's vampire. And I was like, ooh, what is that? So it's a little bit complicated to explain, but there was a movie in 1996 called Irma Vep, which was directed by someone who's in the article that you can read. And it's a movie about a remake of a 1915 movie called Les Vampires. And so it's like a behind the scenes sort of like remaking of this movie. And so I watched the pilot of Irma Vep. Then I went back and I watched the 1996 movie. Wow. So that I could sort of understand what it was, which is interesting movie. I actually really enjoyed it. And then from that, I went, you know what I really want to watch again? I want to watch Only Lovers Left Alive, which is the 2013-ish movie with Tom Hiddleston and Tilda Swinton. Oh my gosh. And so I went down the vampire rabbit hole. But if you haven't seen that one, see that one.
I've never even heard of that. I love the title.
Oh my God, it's so great. And the music in it is just, oh my gosh, it still stands to this day. Wow. It's great.
All right.
Yeah.
Nice work. You did.
It's not a vampire. It's a vampire story, but it's a vampire romance. So it's not violent, but it's not really about that. It's about a relationship between two vampires who are struggling in current day with the world. And they call normal people zombies. And it's actually really great.
I want a good movie to watch. I haven't watched a good movie in a little while. I've just been watching TV, man. I'm rewatching Friends still going through Friends. I'm in episode 6 of season 8, I think. It's funny how I don't know if I ever really watched seasons like 8 and 9 because I'm not remembering some of these episodes. But for anybody who wants to write comedy, half-hour comedy, whether it's a traditional sitcom or any other level of half-hour comedy, just study the traditional sitcoms. It's so formulaic that it just becomes obvious what they're doing and how they structure it. And you can use that as your own little formula for a half-hour comedy. You don't have to do it exactly like them, but it's always the same type of thing. And it's so easy to define. Here's the A story, here's the B story, maybe a C story runner, every single episode. And it's just a blast. I love Friends. But I did watch the pilot to The Time Traveler's Wife on HBO Max.
Oh, how was that?
I loved the book. The movie was good with Rachel McAdams. This one, ooh. It's the idea is so great that it's hard not to enjoy it. I hate being the writer that comments on the acting because I like these two actors. It's not very good. It's hard to say that. I hate to say that because, what the hell do I know? It's good enough for me to be intrigued, but something felt unnatural about it. I think it's worth continuing. It's more plot oriented in terms of my reasoning, but
Yeah, I was watching the trailers for that and I just couldn't get myself to be really into watching it. And so, maybe, I don't know. I feel like I've seen the movie, I've read the book. Do I really need to watch the series?
That's I think part of the issue is that I don't know if they've changed it enough for us to really feel like we're going to have a whole new experience. There are some things in here in the TV version that feel a little different and much more problematic and darker. which is kind of like, oh, okay, that's intriguing. And that's ultimately what's, probably going to have me continue watching. Darker and kind of horrific, which is interesting, but
Yeah.
you gotta catch us right away, man. There's so much TV on TV right now.
We got some viewer mail, y'all, from George in LA. Thanks, George. So this is a great question. What are the screenwriting etiquette rules regarding notes when reading other people's scripts or being asked to read yours? Should you give notes? Should you politely ask for no notes? What do you do?
I will say, when giving notes, an easy way or easy thing to remember is don't make your suggestions as if you're forcing the suggestions on them. And it's a simple change of you should do this to instead you could do this. And it does something completely different in the brain of the person receiving the note. Even though you might think this is what this script needs, don't write it that way, because you're going to ruin the person who's receiving these notes. Plus, it's not your script. Like you're not inside the brain of this person. So you have to be respectful of the creative process. I think that's the number one rule.
Yes. I think in the case of, if you ask to read someone's script, do not give notes to them unless they ask you for notes. Say, great job, I really liked this. If you have a question, you can say, this part to me, I didn't understand. Don't write them a page and a half of notes. Do not do it.
Yeah.
When you are asking someone else to read your script, be prepared to receive notes and do with them what you will. If you want to take them, great. If you don't. That's totally up to you.
Yeah.
For my opinion about giving notes, I think that you have to give a note of what tracks, what works or what doesn't work, or what is confusing. Do not tell somebody what to do. Do not tell somebody how to change something. Do not tell somebody it would be better like this. Just don't do it, because it's not your script. Like Max says, it's not your script.
Yeah.
So you can say what didn't work, what you were confused about, what, anything like that. But yeah, phrase it in a way of like, here's what I was confused about. Did you mean this? You can put it that way. Did you mean this? Yeah. Then you can put that idea. But the moment you say, you should do this, instantly makes a writer defensive, right. And they're going to go like, no.
Yeah.
So any help you are giving and your time that you're giving with the note is just going to go like out the window if you phrase it like, you should do this.
And start with the good stuff. What did you like, instead of just diving in? Didn't like this was bad, this blah. Yeah. There's etiquette. Basically, just be a good person. This is difficult enough as it is.
Kind and thoughtful. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, moving on to, we'll call it the fun news of the week this week. It's just cool.
It is fun.
I'm glad that you found this, Shayna. What we have here is 5 planets will line up in the sky in June. First time since 2004 that this has happened. And they call it a planetary parade. And I think it's just kind of cute.
Oh, I like that. A planetary parade. So yeah, they said on June 24th, it's going to be the easiest day to see that. Yeah. So maybe you can go out. I know LA is like insanely hard to see anything like that, but maybe there's a place to go. I'm sure the Griffith Observatory is going to be nuts. But if you can get out into the country to look up in the sky and see it, amazing.
It's just a fun stargazing, planet gazing type of experience. Yeah, but the planets that will be in line, it will be Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, all lining up. It's just cool. I tried doing a little bit of astrology research on this. I like following astrology. I don't take it literally or too seriously, but I just wanted to see if there was any type of astrological meaning to this. And no.
Oh, no.
No. No meaning to it. And the whole idea of astrology is what sign is a particular planet in. And if you look at the picture that we popped up here, you'll notice that planets are literally in various astrological signs. Like Saturn might be in Capricorn, and so that means the planet is literally within the realm of the constellation Capricorn. But then there is astrological meaning, and it's interesting because all of these signs are in particular small group of signs but it still doesn't actually mean anything astrologically. So, I mean, it all means things individually, but anyway, I think it's kind of cool.
I think energetically, they're probably, if you look up that, if you're looking up like energetically, you know, with like full moons and all those fun things that you can do, like full moon rituals and stuff, I'm sure there's something that is going to be talked about on that day when they're all perfectly lined up.
Yeah. So what, it's going to be 45 minutes before sunrise, best time to see it. But a lot depends on where you are. So that's a pretty early morning.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean like that's when it's perfectly in line, everybody. For a while, probably even as of the recording of this, we can look up in the sky and still see them. They're just not going to be in perfect alignment. But I think it's a nice symbol of summer for all of us here in the States, for all of you in a different hemisphere. I apologize. It's going to be really cold when you try to go out and look at them. But
well, wear your mittens and hats, and Max will be outside in his underwear because it's so hot.
Yeah, and I'm going to be damping my forehead. Look at that. Cheeks are all red. Or I'm going to be researching air conditioning units because I think that might be what I need.
You could take a box and put some ice in it and then put a fan behind it and blow from the other side out.
I could.
I've done that before.
My cats would love to jump into that ice. I think that's everything today, ladies and gentlemen.
That is it.
Yeah. All right.
Leave us a comment. Leave us a question. Check out our news on ISA site.
Yeah. We'll be here next week, as always. But thank you, everyone, for watching the ISA Insider News. We'll see you soon.
See you soon, everyone.